You may have heard about the first day of my vacation, which I went to some sort of church and went to a park with a lot of beaches and those kind of rocks that comes from volcanoes. Well, now I will talk about this the fifth day of my vacation. So this fifth day is the day when my mother's colleagues went home and me and my mother would move to another place to stay for the last 4 days. And but that happened in the afternoon. So I will talk about the morning. So I believe that this morning was maybe a bit boring because this morning, the morning of my fifth day, was mostly for my mother and her colleagues to work, to go to some sort of company, FBT, that. So they go to the company for work, not for us kids or for them to play or have fun anymore. And I believe that the fifth day of my vacation is a bit boring. Well, the fifth day is just normal. Like we just wake up and we went on the bus to a park. It was like a park for technology or for maybe modern technology. And when we got there, well, there was a lot of person, and there was this man who just talks and talks about the technology or about his company, and I got really bored of talking and didn't exactly listen to it. But there was one thing that really captured my eyes. Well, it was a large space for, it was like a mini model of the city there, of all those places surrounding it, and there were even mountains, but when it was small and tiny, I thought it was like just a few hills that I could run across in about 5 minutes, or maybe just 2 or 3 minutes. But in reality, it would be huge mountains. And about those mini models, there was even a lake and some small boats and canoes. Also, there were cars too. And there were buildings, including the building of the company. And I thought it was really fascinating because there were lights there. There were lights in those things, and that man, he can control the light with a pen. It looked like a pen, and I think it could be written by. And there were some kinds of buttons on it. And I only got a sneak peek of it because he was holding it really tightly. But at least I saw some buttons, and my mother said it was like a pen. Well, that was the first part of the company, and well, there was the upper floor, and on the upper floor where we got, it was like a big room with loads of computers, where people or coworkers worked there. And when we all walked into that, my other colleagues and a few of my friends there, well, when we walked in, they suddenly stood up and like they clapped their hands and then just sat down again, and didn't pay any attention to us anymore. Well, I thought that the clapping part and the sitting down and not paying any attention to us again is a bit. It's not really. It doesn't seem really nice because the first thing they were clapping to us, but then the second thing they just sat down and glued their eyes to their computers. So I didn't really like that part. And when we got there, there was like a big space in the front of the room where there were there was a camera and and some sort of technological devices that I didn't understand. And the bad part about that was that there weren't any chairs there, so I had to stand. And when I sat on the table it suddenly moved, so I didn't sat on it again. And well, soon I got pretty bored of that. There were chairs, but it was another space, so I didn't dare sit because I was afraid that I wouldn't be allowed to sit there. So I can sit and just stand and stare at the camera because it showed a lot of our bodies, and there was like a rectangular shape around us on the camera. And there were words there too. There were words there too, and some of those rectangular shapes were green and some were red. And I think that the red one shows that that person doesn't belong here, and the green one says that it does belong. And and well, and when there was a man there, the same man who just talks and holds a pen. He got up there too, and I realized that his rectangle around on the camera was red, but I think there was some kind of error or something because mine turned red a few times too, and it just turned green again. And just to say, I didn't understand the camera or understand anything about those technological devices that he showed us. Well, I still got bored, and I asked my mother if I could go down to the first floor again to just watch that model. Well, I think that model was interesting, but it didn't move or anything. And I only liked the lights that just go on and off, because there was nothing really interesting about that place. And the only thing that was at least a bit interesting was that tiny model of the city there. And so I went down and just stared at it, and I waited for a really long time for my mother and her colleagues and a few of my friends to come down. And when we finally got down, it was time to go out of that building. And while I didn't really understand why my mother and her colleagues really need to go to the building, to hear a bunch of guys talk about their technological devices and their technology in the company, because well, I didn't see any meaning in just listening to it, because there were a few of my mother's colleagues who just stood there and surfed the internet. And here she didn't even listen. And so when we got back to the bus, we went to kind of like a restaurant, and well, I was at least a bit happy that the restaurant didn't serve seafood anymore. It was like just normal food, no seafood. Well, I think that the meal was actually pretty great compared to the fourth day where I had to eat lunch at a seafood restaurant, which I think wasn't exactly nice. And from what I remember, I think that when we ate, then we went back to like the hotel, because my mother's colleagues need to prepare to pack their suitcase to go home. So well, me and my mother didn't have to, because we still had to prepare, but we weren't in a hurry because we would only leave at midnight to go to another place. And well, so in the afternoon we said goodbye to my mother colleagues, and then we went back to our room well, maybe not our room, but to one of my mother's colleagues' room, because she was staying there for another day so that we could have her room to rest and just to rest. Well, during the rest of the time before midnight, I just sat there and watched TV because there was nothing to do. There was nothing to do because there was no friends to play and nothing. And my mother was busy doing her work, and my mother's colleague was sleeping. And usually I don't play with grown-ups. I play with my friends, but they've all went home. So that is about the afternoon or the evening. And finally it was midnight, about almost 11 o'clock. So while me and my mother went out to take a car, to get a taxi, to get to one of the bus stops so that we can catch a night bus. Well, it was a bus that has beds in it, but they were really small beds for 2 people. And when the bus came, we were going to a place that is pretty near, but still might take like 4 or 5 or even 6 hours to get there. So the bus schedule was like from 11 o'clock at midnight to about 6 o'clock in the morning. I think it was 5 o'clock, not 6 o'clock. And while we were going to Da Nang, which is a pretty beautiful place, but But I thought that after all of those days on vacation, I thought that it was a bit boring. But I didn't know then, so when the bus came to catch us, me and my mother got to bed at the very last of the bus, and we got the last bed, which was pretty lucky. But I think that my mother ordered it first instead of just getting on the bus and choosing a bed. So 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 when I got on the bus, like I just fell asleep really quickly because it was midnight, and I haven't slept since the afternoon. So when I got on the bus, I slept really well. And then the memory of me sleeping was the last memory of that day, which I think that the fifth day is, well, it's not too interesting or too fun as the third or the fourth day in which I went to the beach or went to the church. And but still, I think that the fifth day was actually a bit exciting because I was going on that kind of bus, the kinds of bus that have beds on it for the first time. So I think that it was still exciting and still pretty worth, living in. So in conclusion, I believe that my fifth day was actually a bit boring, but it was still great. Maybe not as great as the third or fourth one, but still actually nice. Well, that is all about the fifth day of my vacation, and I think that if you listen to it, you might enjoy it too. Well, that's all, and thank you for listening.